classroom-based assessments. No. Okay, so thanks for attending one more time. And then in the break, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to read the details of blueprints. I don't know what I'm sure that we'll be in the middle of something, so you finish reading that, and then the second part we will try and finish this chapter 10. It's not very long. Most of the pages are examples, and because you are familiar with examples, because are examples of templates, and you know how to make templates now. So hopefully we will finish the second hour, and in the last 5-10 minutes of the second session, I will tell you about the presentations next week. No? Okay, great. So I'm going to ask Abby to please share this PDF, chapter 10.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so I'm going to start with a little recap. No, something that I already said last Monday. When you need to develop classroom-based assessments, usually you need to include a variety of single assessment tasks. So the more tasks you have, and the more varied they are, okay, the better, the better for you, because when you have more assessment tasks, then these will convey the principle of generalizability, okay, consistency, and meaningfulness. These three principles that we have analyzed in depth. And so in the previous lessons, we saw the task templates. Yeah, but the task template is only one element of what we call the blueprint. On the next page, because this is only the introduction, but on the next page we have the definition of blueprint. Okay, so something exactly, for example, on that page we have the definition of blueprint. Okay, well, so we're going to go back to the first page, and I'm going to I'm going to ask Abby to please read this second paragraph, which I think summarizes what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say now. Please.
Okay, when you want to develop assessment with multiple tasks or different forms of an assessment, you need to prepare a set of assessment specifications, also known as a blueprint. This blueprint will guide you in the development of the assessment. It will help you make sure that the areas of ability to be assessed are, in fact, covered in the assessment. That the kinds of assessment tasks included correspond to instructional tasks in the TLU domain. That assessment reports will be consistent from one assessment to the next.
Okay, thank you very much, Abby. So practically, what you read here in this passage, in this paragraph, is what a blueprint is. I mean, the importance of developing blueprints, blueprints. Because think of a blueprint as as like in Spanish, como un manual de usuario, yeah, I can't think of another word. When in administration, I was thinking about something to establish an analogy. Manual de como el manual de operación, el manual del usuario, ¿no? But think of a blueprint in those terms, no? So it's something that when you read, you understand how all the process works, no? What it is that you're going to assess, why, how, the instructions, the task characteristics, the template, it's everything, no? So everything is there in the blueprint, no? It's como el documento supremo, no? Of the assessment, of the evaluation. Okay, right. And also, as you can read in the next part, it says, in addition to guiding your development of assessment, a blueprint helps you maintain quality control as you develop assessments. So we're going to see in the next 3-4 pages, that sometimes you work alone. You make your own assessments, you make your own tests, but sometimes you work with other teachers. Sometimes you work only for a specific department or specific language ability. And so it's important that everybody in the department is using the same methodology, that everybody is using the same blueprints. And so by doing this, you keep the standards high, the standards of quality high. Okay, so working with blueprints will help you, for example, if that's the case, for example, to compare the different forms of assessments. Okay, and basically the idea and the benefit of having the blueprint is that with this you will receive backing. You will receive support for the claims about the qualities of your interpretations and assessment records. So as you see now, all the pieces of the puzzle come together here. All that we saw before, for example, interpretations, decisions, and everything, they come together here when you elaborate the blueprint, and that's the importance of the blueprint, to reinforce this these principles of consistency, meaningfulness, and the other one I forgot. Well, I forgot the other one. Okay, consistency, meaningfulness. Okay, basically. Okay, and so if we can go to the next chapter here, at the next page, please. So on the next page, the author explains what is going to happen in this lesson, what we're going to see in this lesson. So I don't know if you can, let me see, okay, this page here. Let me see, this one, yeah. What is a blueprint? Great, yeah. So, well, Abby, make sure that everybody can see that, because I'm using my cell phone. Well, I also have my book here with me, but I want to, yeah, right. So maybe with a pointer, exactly, you can show where we are.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you very much. So the author here explains what we're going to see in this chapter. So first, we're going to see a definition of blueprint. Describe some different situations, okay, in which a blueprint can be used, and then finally discuss how a blueprint can be used to provide quality control of the assessment, of the development of assessments. Right. So it's a very short chapter actually, compared to other chapters. So what is a blueprint? Now, I'd like someone to please read the definition. Okay.
Hey, Prof.
Thank you very much, please.
What is a blueprint? Specialists in language assessment and educational assessment use the term blueprint for a set of specifications that can be used for developing assessments. A blueprint is a detailed plan that specifies the content and format of an assessment and the procedures and instructions for administering an assessment.
Thank you very much. Great. So there you go. It is a detailed plan. Detailed plan that specifies the content and format of an assessment. Okay, and if you look at the chart here, the table 10.1, no, it's all these 10 things, no, it's all these 10 components that you have here. What divided in 3 sections, no, assessment specifications, procedures and instructions for the whole assessment, assessment task template, no, for each task type. But if you put all together, it's 10, no? 10 items that are part of a blueprint. Okay, so blueprint is a set of specifications, no? that is used for developing assessments. Okay, great. Okay, so I would like you to analyze this example here, not the example, this table here, table 1. In part, this is a review because we already saw assessment specifications, we saw procedures, and we saw number 3, the assessment task template, and we know the parts. Yeah, so as number 1, we have assessment specifications. Okay, and this includes these 4 items here. Numbers and descriptive labels of the part. Numbers and descriptive labels of the task per part. Relative importance of the parts and tasks. And time allowed for each part and overall, and all the test. 2 is procedures and instructions for the whole assessment. This has 2 parts, procedures and general instructions. And the last part is assessment task template, which we already saw in chapter 8. And this has to be done for each task type. Remember that from the task type, we can create new assessments, assessment tasks. We saw that in chapter number 9, that combining I mean, the task type and changing the task characteristics, 1 or 2 or more aspects of the task characteristics, we can create new assessment tasks. So we saw that in chapter 8 and 9. Sorry. Okay, and so for the assessment task template, we have activities and procedures to be followed. That's how the task template begins. Then we have the assessment task characteristics, the recording method, and then finally task-specific instructions. Okay, so now it's like you have here the whole document, the whole thing together. So keep this, maybe I don't know, maybe take a photo of this, or this is what you have to do when you're doing the blueprint. It's all the steps that you need. So try and keep them somewhere accessible, so when you want to refer back to the blueprint, you know that these are the steps. Right. Okay, so in the following lines, we read about examples that we're gonna see here. You don't really need to read that. It's explanations from the author. In the next pages, you're gonna see an example of a blueprint, for an assessment that has 2 parts: listening and reading. The original exam, was created with 2 with 2 listening tasks and 2 reading tasks. But here, the author explains that to save some space, they decided to include only one. But originally, this has 2 listening tasks and 2 reading tasks. Of course, he reminds us that, for example, if you're doing a little quiz on maybe one particular lesson, or one particular grammar point or something, but only one, maybe you can create 2 assessment tasks. Not maybe that should be enough. But if you're creating an assessment for a whole unit, no, for a whole unit, you might need to include more, no, maybe 3, 4 assessment tasks. And so that will depend on your needs, no, your needs. Great, and so then we can go to page 134, to the next page. I think it's this one here. Great, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and so here you have an example of an assessment blueprint. No? It's this quiz, le vamos a llamar quiz, that has 2 sections, no? Listening and reading. And so, as you can see here, you have the assessment specifications. No? The abilities that are tested, we have listening, and then number 2, reading. The tasks, no? You have listening task 1, listening task 2. For example, in the first one, listen to an audio input and select answers to questions from a list. That's a very quick explanation. Importance, time. Importance, time for the other. For reading, we have 2 tasks. Task 1, read and match the headings with the paragraphs. Okay, 25% of the total grade, and then 10 minutes. Okay, and then task 2, read different text with gaps and choose the sentence from a list that correctly fits each gap. That's also a 25%, and you have 10 minutes in right. So it's a quick diagram of what the exam is going to contain, no? What the test or the quiz contains. So that's the first part. That's the assessment specifications. And then as you see here, you have procedures and instructions. No? Procedures, for example, the teacher reads the general instructions to the students. The teacher reads the instruction for each task and follows the activity and procedure described in the assessment task template. Yeah, right. Well, I don't know, looking at this example, what you usually, I don't know if you operate that way. Now, if you read the instructions to the students, maybe it's a good idea because it might have a good impact in the washback. No? It can create some positive washback. No? Todas estas ideas que le ayudan to make the student feel more comfortable. No? For example, reading the instructions and then maybe explaining, no? if 1 or 2 terms are confusing. This gives the students more confidence, no? And they relax and they know that the teacher cares, that the teacher takes some time to explain and read instructions and clarify things. Positive washback. No? But usually in other institutions, in international exams, nobody tells you anything. No? You enter the room, you're given the paper. No? They give you 2 hours and then you leave. No? But if you can do this, if you can develop this habit, no, with the students, is going to impact positively in their washback. Okay, general instructions, as you can see here, it says this is a test of your listening. There are 2 parts, blah, blah, blah. It's like the explanation of what the students are going to encounter in their exam, no? A quick description. Right, that usually you have that on the first page, no? After they have their names, they put their names, teacher's name, blah, 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 blah. Then you have a general instructions. No? It's important that this is very clear in language that is easily understood. No? And also, it's always advisable that you ask students, okay, to read that, and if they don't understand, to ask Q, no? Or like the first part, if you can explain quickly, no? Students, you're going to do this, no? You're going to have 40 minutes, 20 minutes for one section, 20 for the other, but be careful about the time and if you don't understand, let me know, okay? Great. Yeah, then after this, we have the template, no? The task template. So if we can scroll down a little bit there, then we have the task template for part 1, the listening, and then on the next, in the next page, we have, after 2 or 3 pages, no, after 1 page, we have section 2, which is the reading, no? The reading part. Okay, so if you analyze now, you're very familiar now with the assessment task template, no? And so, see that, where are we? Assessment use, I don't know if we can go to, Abby, what happened with the document?
I don't know. Let me see.
Okay, great. Yeah, what you see, what you have next on page 135 is the assessment task template for the listening section.
Yes.
And so remember that this has three components. No? First, we have activities and procedures to be followed. Then you have the task characteristics in un cuadro aparte, in a table. And then you have the recording method also in another table. No? And well, here, when we saw the task templates in the previous lesson 8, we didn't have we didn't pay much attention to the last part, which is instructions. No? But pero aquí es oportuno, no? that you include instructions. No? So clearly specify what it is that students really have to do and how much time they have. And yeah, so, but you're going to see that when the document is displayed here. Okay, so can we get back to the document?
Can you see it? I'm sharing the document.
Really? Okay, wait. So let me, then it's only me that, yeah, I must have touched something. Yeah, sorry, yeah, it's here. I touched the screen. Yeah, and so as you can see here, you know, if we can go back to, where are we now? What page is this? Sorry.
135.
135. Example number 9. No, I think you're sharing, that's example number 9, which, let me see that. Oh yeah, what's a blueprint? Yes.
We're in the page, but the next one is the example number 9, but I'm fixing that.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, well, so this is the example of task characteristics of, yeah, so up here, no? Yeah, so with a pointer, you can point to the first item, activities and procedures to be followed, so students know where we are. Activities and procedures to be followed. Yeah, that's where we are. And so, as you can see here, now you have items 1 and 2. No, item 1 says, a week before the assessment, the teacher tells the students this. No, for example, now you will have an assessment of your listening ability the following week. The purpose of the assessment is to give you a mark that will count as part of your grade to pass the course. No? To explain the importance of this assessment. No? You will listen to a conversation between 2 speakers. You will then answer comprehension questions. So give them some detail about what it is that they are going to do. Of course, you can't give them hints on what the story or the track is or anything, no? But they need to know more or less the type of activity that they would have to do. No?
Prof, sorry.
Proper practice is something similar in class. No? Yes.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting you. I have a question. Is when do I know that I am helping my students? How should I know if I am helping my students too much?
Yeah, good question. Good question. Yeah, of course. Never give them for example, the hints about what track you're going to use, or tell them I'm going to use the same recordings that you have in the book or in the workbook or in the platform, because we learned from other lessons that students have to be, when they are assessed, we teachers responsibly have to use different material that we have in the books, because it's not fair, with other students. Maybe other students have developed the ability, and they can do a good test, okay. But if you use the same activities that you have in the book, for example, the same recording, the same story in the book, then you're giving advantage to other students, the students that have good memory, and those students that memorize everything, and if they know that you recycle the same activities, of course they will do better than those students that are have a better level of ability, language ability. So it's fair, no? And so one of the principles of the exam is that it has to be fair, no? And that the records have to be consistent, no? So one student is doing great now because you help them with telling them the tracks that you're going to use. But next time when they are tested in an international exam, they're going to fail. So the results, for example, here cannot be generalized. So it's a very good question, but I think that you know, I mean, you as a teacher know when you're helping them too much, no? Giving them the answers, telling them that you're going to use this and this activity, no? And so prepare this activity because this activity is going to be there. Then you're helping them too much, no? That's why it's always, it's like a rule, no? That teachers have to use different tracks, no? Different tracks, different stories, not the tracks that you have in the book or the work. Yeah, but I think well, of course that comes also with your experience, with your expertise. No, at the beginning we all make those mistakes. No, I've made those mistakes too. No, that because you are running out of time, you're given for example, you're given the workbook, y a veces te dan un teacher's manual or something, and there you have, for example, the quizzes. But the students, they manage to have access to those quizzes, and so, for example, and I remember, using the same quizzes over and over again, and students got good grades. No, so after 2 or 3 quizzes, I said, no, my students are cheating, no, because they have access to these tests, and so I decided to borrow tests for my colleagues, or I decided to make my test today, and then next week my colleague, and then we exchanged, and we got materials from different sources, no? Because for sure students are always one step ahead of you, no? So you have to be very careful. If students know that you have that there's a teacher's manual, or a teacher source, or a teacher's web page where teachers download their exams, students will get access to that. So you have to be you have to anticipate, these inconveniences. Thank you.
Yeah,
But yes.
yeah, yeah, but in that case, I think a solution could be creating your own exercises, your own material.
Exactly. That's ultimately the best thing to do. No? For example, that's what we did at Catholic University in the last 2 years of one of my duties there, because I was a full-time position teacher there. And so I was assigned different duties. And one of them in the last 2 years was la comisión de exámenes. And so we worked in groups. Now 4 teachers developing exams for levels 1, for different levels, no, level 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we had 4 people creating different items, no? For example, listening, writing, and you were given, for example, level 8, and I was in charge of creating all the exams, no? But you have to be careful, no, because one thing is that you have to create your own question, your own quiz, but it's a different thing that you have to create, for example, the reading or the conversations, no? Because one problem that we had in this comisión is that teachers, no, en el afán, no, en el afán of creating their own super exams that nobody could do, no, these exams, they created their own conversations. But when we sat at the comisión, at the commission, and we read those conversations, the conversations were artificial, no? We couldn't see this natural ingredient that we have, no? When native speakers are talking, they don't use this creative structures, no, that sometimes we try and use because we want to make a good test, no? So what we did is we had to sit and analyze and discuss, no, and try and see if these phrases are real, no, exist in real English. And then we changed them and we asked native speakers. We invited Mike. Mike worked with us in this commission, no? He was the only native, American native speaker. So we asked him if this is natural, and then we corrected, no? Because that's one mistake that sometimes we make, no? We say, no, I'm going to make my own tests, para que nadie me copie, entonces I'm going to make my own tests. But then we sit and we write examples that don't exist in English, and sometimes are wrong, or they don't sound logical or natural. And so my advice is that if you're going to create, for example, reading, you can take an original reading of any kind, of any sort. Yeah. So you don't have to sit and write an article, no, for the students, because let's be honest, you know, we are not native speakers, no. Although we can have many years of experience, but still we can sit and write an article. Besides, writing an article will take you days, no, with revision, correction, etc., editing and everything. And so you use the same, you use articles that you find online or related to the topic, and you don't make any changes to that, no. Okay, but when you sit and elaborate the questions, that's where you do your own work, no? So you sit and read in the story, you try and do, for example, fill in the blanks, matching, all those things, no. But that has to be your own creation, because the students can have access to the text, no. O sea, coincidencialmente pueden, maybe they could have read this article once in their life, but they don't know the type of questions you're going to ask. And so that's where the hard work comes, no? That's the hard part, that you have to sit and elaborate your own questions. Now, because if you download them from the internet and you take the same questions, there's a chance that the students know that you're doing that, you're taking that material from such and such website, and they're going to find out, and then soon they're going to cheat, no? So you have to be always one step ahead of your students, because they try to outsmart you all the time. Yeah. And also something else is but regarding the topic that what we're doing here is that it's always a good idea, no? And of course you have to know the limits, no? But it's always a good idea to reduce negative watchback, that you practice some similar exercises in class, no? Remember that students have to be tested on the basis of something that they have seen in class, no? Okay, that's like a principle, no? When you test the students based on what you've seen in class, they can't complain. No? They can't complain. And so it's always good for positive watchback to explain. No, you're going to do this. You're going to have usually you're going for example, you say you're going to have 1 hour. I'm going to do the test on Wednesday, the first hour. So you have you're fresh, no, and it's going to have this and this. No, it's going to be more or less like this, something that we have practiced in class. Period. No, ahí no les tenemos que dar ni un ejemplo, something that you're going to do in the exam, nothing. No? Only preparing them to have to be in the best attitude for that day. Great. Well, I hope I've answered or contributed to answer the question.
Yeah, yes, Prof. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Okay, no, thank you.
Prof, we
Thank
have
you.
less than a minute.
Yes, then a minute. Okay, so let's just finish this and then we take the 10-minute break and then we continue. Yeah? And so on the day of the assessment, as we see here, the day of the assessment, the teacher briefly explains the listening activity to the class. Students are given an answer sheet with the questions of the conversation they will listen to. Students listen to a short conversation about free time activities and write their answers to questions about their conversations on the answer sheet. So this is more or less an explanation, more